I'm a conservationist. I didn't used to be one, or at least I didn't used to describe myself as one. I used to think conservation was for people with science degrees, people who dressed up in khaki and ran about in forests looking for rare endangered birds, people who live off-grid, who don't watch Netflix, who don't come out to the theatre. It just wasn't me. Then 8 years ago, I joined Chester Zoo. My new job to develop their education programmes so they'd achieve conservation. And over the time that I've worked for the zoo, I've begun to realise that I am a conservationist. We can all be conservationists. Everyone in this room could become a conservationist. Whatever your training, wherever you work, we can all make the changes needed to protect wildlife, and we can inspire others to do the same. We need to. Climate change is threatening our planet. We're losing species up to 10,000 times faster than the natural rate, mostly because of things that we humans are doing. So we humans need to do things differently. But I'm not here tonight to nag you about all of the things that you could be doing to save the planet. I want to talk about education. I want to talk about how schools can both create the conservation action we desperately need today and inspire the conservationists of the future. How do you define what good education is? Is it about the grades achieved? We often measure our schools by their league tables of test results. Good grades lead to good jobs to a good economy, or so we're told. We're training children to be the workers that we need tomorrow. But do any of us really know what we'll be working on tomorrow? One thing that seems fairly certain to me is we will be working to try and solve the environmental problems we're creating today. We need young people to be able to solve problems, to innovate, and to make a difference in the real world, not in the abstract world of textbooks and exams. We need young people to grow up to be changemakers, and I believe they can learn this best by being the changemakers of now. Do you remember before the pandemic, when young people were striking from schools on Fridays, demanding action on climate change, demonstrating that they want to be part of change? Young people shouldn't need to strike from school to be heard. We, you and me, need to listen to them. So back to education and schools. I work with some amazing school leaders through my work at the zoo. We believe that education is as much about the difference it makes now as it is about preparing young people for their future. We believe we need to listen to young people and empower them as conservationists. What do you think of when you think of conservation education in schools? Science lessons, maybe. But just as not all conservationists are scientists, conservation is not just a science subject. It's in philosophy, in geography, in literature, in the arts. It's everywhere and every day, and it needs to feel like that when it's taught in schools. This is what we wanted young people to experience, that they could work on real conservation issues, the same ones that the conservationists at Chester Zoo are working on today. So we took those real conservation issues and we put them at the heart of the school curriculum. So they were studied by every year group in every subject. And when we'd done this with one school, we did it with another and another until thousands of pupils had taken part. The first school we worked with took their campaign to a local shopping centre. I'd like you to imagine the scene. A group of children in amongst the high street shops singing their campaign song. Another group with their banners held high. Small groups of 10-year-olds approaching the gathered shoppers, asking the adults to do more to protect endangered species. And they didn't have to break any school rules or leave their lessons to do this. They were supported by their teachers to craft their message, to create their banners, and to learn the song. And all of the children could participate, not just a self-selecting few. Now I'd like to take you to a playground in another school. In amongst the play, the children are chatting excitedly. All of this week, they've been learning about the threats that rainforest species face because of unsustainable palm oil. Now, on the playground, they're swapping top tips for finding sustainable items for their lunchboxes. When playtime's over, they go in for their English lessons, and they write persuasive letters to local businesses, asking them to choose sustainable ingredients for their products. The children's quest to understand the palm oil issue and to save the rainforests spilled over into every aspect of school life. But one of my favourite examples was a school who came together to create a music video about UK pollinators, which they shared with their local council. The message, to let it grow, to the tune of a rather well-known Disney song. They ask that their playing fields be allowed to grow, to make better habitat for bees and butterflies and other pollinators. The children went on to make playing fields that were better for children and for wildlife. Isn't that brilliant? Children making a change today that will last into the future. Their lessons went beyond school, not just through the music videos and the letter writing. They created exhibitions and performances to share with their community. They hosted meetings with political leaders and CEOs of major companies. And adults came and listened and joined a conversation with them. Here's what I think is significant about this work. Firstly, it was based on real conservation issues, good science, but it was explored and expressed in every aspect of the curriculum. Secondly, the children had a real voice. They were invested in what they were learning. And thirdly, that learning was turned into real conservation action. Playgrounds were improved for wildlife, and more sustainable choices were made. And this wasn't a distraction from good grades either. Actually, they benefited. Reluctant writers became more motivated to write because they were writing about real issues to real people who might write back to them. So why don't more schools do this? Why don't we have an education system that is built around the issues that young people care about? Whilst grades are prioritised over making a difference, conservation will remain at the edges, and only some young people will have access to it or be able to create the conservation action we desperately need. We, all of us, as a society, need to decide what's important to us. Ask ourselves about the purpose of education. When we asked one of the young people who'd taken part in our projects about her experience, she said, "People may underestimate us and think that we can't change anything, but we have proved that actually we can do anything we want." We mustn't underestimate children and the power they have to change the world, or their desire to do so. But we do need to demand an education system that empowers them.